Greetings and welcome to this informational webinar. We will be sharing with you some information and frequently asked questions for the Educator Prep Program Professional Development Series for the spring of 2015. My name is Jennifer Roberts and I will be sharing with you some information today. And if you have any questions at all after our time together today, you can email me at the email that's on the screen, or you can visit our website, which is OregonPDSeries.com. So briefly, I'll just go over what our objectives for today are. I'm going to share with you the goals for the 2015 PD series. I'll talk briefly about each of the 5 events in the series. I'll give you some information about team composition and how to select appropriate team members. Talk to you a little bit about funding and the allocation of money from ODE, as well as the application process and requirements. I'll show you a little bit about how your teams can prepare for and synthesize after the events in the PD series using our website, and then I'll also give you some resources to help you answer questions. The goals of the 2015 PD series are focused primarily around culturally responsive practice. We used the feedback that we received last summer during the inaugural institute, as well as some identified state goals for educator effectiveness to arrive at this focus for this year. So our goal is to provide educator preparation programs with resources, ideas, and opportunities to consider ways that we are preparing the next generation of teachers to meet the demands of the diverse classrooms in Oregon. So this initiative comes from the Oregon Department of Education's Quality Teaching and Learning initiatives and is funded through that program. Briefly, I'm going to go through each of the 5 events in the series and talk a little bit about what the funding will provide for your team. So the first of the 5 events is the Professional Learning Team Conferences that will be taking place in late winter, early spring. There are 3 different conferences that will take place around the state of Oregon, and these conferences are year-long events which provide an opportunity for K-12 and higher ed faculty, staff, and teachers to come together and talk about how we're implementing the Common Core state standards, how we're meeting the educator effectiveness initiatives in Oregon, and other issues related to education. So your team will select which of the 3 sites is closest to your institution, and your team will be funded to bring up to 5 representatives to the PLT conference that is closest to your institution. A word of caution on this one: the Portland meeting is definitely going to be the most heavily attended and popular meeting, and so we cannot guarantee that everyone will get their first choice in meeting location, but we will certainly do our best to ensure that you all get the meeting location that you prefer, or at least one that is within 2 hours of your institution. So we'll provide you with funding to send representatives to the PLT conferences, and during that time you will have an opportunity to hear information about how the various content areas within the Common Core state standards are being implemented within Oregon schools that are also using culturally responsive pedagogies and practices. Series event number 2 is the Oregon Association of Teacher Educators Conference in March in Portland. Your project can fund up to 5 people to attend that conference. There will be various sessions and strands related to culturally responsive practices, and the day will culminate with a 2-hour get-together for all of the transformational teams, an opportunity to come together to connect, and then to provide us with a foundation for the upcoming events. So you'll be receiving more information about that very soon. The third event in the series is the Oregon English Language Learners Alliance, or sorry, the English Learners Alliance Conference in Eugene. COSA sponsors this conference every year, and this year we are bringing in a very special keynote speaker who is going to help the attendees focus on how we're preparing all of our teachers in Oregon to work with language learners in our classrooms. Dr. Joyce Nuta from Florida will be with us, and she will provide on the second day of the conference a special session for educator preparation programs to provide them with different models for how to infuse the preparation of all teachers with the knowledge and skills that they need to work with second language learners. So we're really excited to have her with us. Your project will have funds to bring up to 3 representatives to that, including some overnight accommodations as needed. The next event is one that we have created and are hosting. It is the Culturally Responsive Pedagogy and Practices Workshop with Dr. Geneva Gay, hosted in Portland. We're really excited to have Dr. Gay with us and think this is going to be a really great 3-day event. She will be with us 2 of the 3 days, and the third day will be an opportunity for the teams to have time to plan, to share, to talk about the status of culturally responsive teaching within teacher education across Oregon, and to share resources. Each team can bring up to 5 representatives, and again, we'll have overnight accommodations and provide food and other things. And the final event in the series will be our Capstone Event, again taking place in Portland. Just one final opportunity for the teams to come together to continue planning for the implementation of lessons learned throughout the series, to debrief and share what's working and what's not working across the state, and to problem solve. So we'll bring teams up to 5 members from each team to Portland and include overnight accommodations as needed. Selecting your team members. Each team has a lot of flexibility in being able to choose who should represent your team. So as you think about who would be appropriate to attend each of the events, here are some things to keep in mind. We want to make sure that teams are made up of people who are capable of helping to forward the goals of the series as we've described them here. So who can you send that would be able to come back and help your institution further these goals? Teams can invite faculty, staff, and school partners as they see appropriate to meeting these goals. And each team must have one team facilitator. It's not necessary that this team facilitator attend every event, but certainly the team facilitator would know who is attending each of the events and would try to provide as much continuity and consistency where possible. Again, not every team member needs to go to every event. But where possible, we are looking for some continuity and consistency across those experiences, especially as we think about coming together at the end to do some planning and strategic thinking about how to infuse these ideas within your teacher education program. Funding and allocation of money will take place through the designated fiscal agent from your institution. Your team will be awarded a set amount that will cover the expenses outlined in the application. And you can access those funds throughout the spring semester to pay for any incurred allowable expenses. Your team has some flexibility in how you will pay for these allowable expenses, and deciding if you want to allocate more money to, say, to mileage versus stipends, or allowing for additional overnight accommodations where necessary, those kinds of things. So you'll be given your set of amount of money, and your team can decide how best to allocate those. Thinking about the allowable expenses, again, we want to focus on things like mileage and stipends, overnight accommodations, food, and registration fees. But there are certainly other things that are related to the participation in this PD series that we may not have thought of, so we're leaving some flexibility there to consider allowable expenses. The application process is online. It's pretty straightforward. If you go to the OregonPDSeries.com website, you'll have a link right there at the very top of the page to the application. You'll be able to see all of the application questions. The priority deadline has already passed, but the final deadline is still approaching on Thursday, January 15th. And the application questions, again, are pretty straightforward. We're asking for information about who's going to make up your team, how many people you anticipate participating in each of the events, and what's the status of your program readiness and interest in culturally responsive teaching. Just as well as just some simple information about who is the fiscal agent at your institution and providing some assurances. This application mirrors fairly well the application for the 2015 or 2014 Summer Institute. In terms of preparation for each of the events, we will be using the OregonPDSeries.com website to share materials with your teams to help them prepare for each of the events. The preparation materials will include things like readings, some podcasts. There are a few institutional self-assessments that we'll ask you to complete and bring with you, as well as other relevant materials that would help you and your team be best prepared to participate in the events. Again, we'll be using the website to share all of that information with you and to provide a space for teams to share information as they go as well. If you have any additional questions or want more information, the OregonPDSeries.com website should be your first point of contact. If you're interested in learning about the 2014 Summer Institute and what participants had to say about that experience, we encourage you to watch the YouTube video linked here. It's a really great way to hear from participants who came through last summer, to hear more about what they thought of that experience, and the feedback that we got from them was certainly used in helping us to design this year's PD series. Again, if you have any questions, my email address is there on screen, and you are welcome to contact me at any time, or you can contact Markeisha Smith, who is my counterpart at the Oregon Department of Education. Either she or I can get you whatever information you might need to help you submit your application and to attend the Oregon PD series. Thank you very much for listening, and please let us know what additional questions you might have as your team completes the application and begins the series this spring. Thank you for listening.